Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second half of our South Florida Tribune Broadcasting doubleheader. Fire up. My name is Scott Morgan, Ross Motor City Manmouth. Had a great show last hour on Pundits Pundit. George and I were joined alongside of Denzel Snipes and Jacob Christer. With that said, this is the second half of our doubleheader, and we'll let everybody know that Fire Up is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Fire Up can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? One way to do it is go through the chat room. The other way is send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com, and we'll place you with the appropriate title depending on the topic. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter, X, at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. And just to let everybody know, I am working on a book, Adjusting to New Media, so that'll be coming out in the next several weeks. I'll give more details as we go along. That said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the crew. We have a very busy night. We're talking about the National Football League, pretty much mainly. Yeah, in fact, we are talking about the National Football League. Earlier today on social media, we talked all Pennsylvania sports. Now we're limiting it to the Steel City. All right, to my right, Ralph Williams. I joined him on the External Bum podcast. I believe that runs on Saturday morning, normally from 9:30 to 10. This week we're doing it
Right.
half an hour earlier. Mark Mancini and Joe Kuklis usually are our other co-hosts. Is that correct, Ralph?
Yes, it is. You got it right there, Scott. Yes, it is. Every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. This week we're on at 9 a.m.
Right. I enjoy doing that. That's an awful lot of fun. You talk about me talking fast. Well, go out there and tune into that and you talk about the fastest 30 minutes in sports when we get done running it up. I wouldn't even know the way that show is paid 30 minutes or 30 seconds, but either way, 30 is a lucky number. Pay attention and check us out. Ralph has updates and I have them as well. So with that said, the other member is Jeremy Ballrick, who is my MVP. He's all over the map, and tonight he's on here.
Thank you. It's glad to be here, Scott. Nice to see you again, Ralph and George.
Thanks, Jeremy.
And last but not least, long time no see, George. Last hour.
Yeah, been a while. Good to be back on here with you guys.
All right,
George, thank you.
Let's get to it. The word's very unfortunate, but it wasn't dirty. Applied to Pittsburgh Steelers safety Minkah Fitzpatrick as he defended his hit on Nick Chubb. That left the Cleveland Browns running back with a season-ending knee injury. The Browns re-signed Kareem Hunt. Pittsburgh defeated Cleveland 26-22. The Steelers take on Las Vegas on Sunday. Well, what's your interpretation of that play, Ralph?
Well, Minkah, it was a clean hit. There was no penalty on the play. So obviously, and Minkah said it was a clean hit. They did a press conference with him today, and he said that it was a clean hit. He got a chest injury and had to leave the game. So, he got hurt too. So, it's not like, but it's not as bad as Chubb. But I mean, it was a clean hit from what I could tell. And then also he verified it today that it was a clean hit. He's been taking a lot of slack over that, Cleveland fans especially. Of course, Cleveland loses anyway. But, but Ford picked up the slack, his backup. And, so we'll see what goes on from there.
Jeremy?
The optics of it in the real time, because the one linebacker hit him up high and Minkah came in low, it looked dirty. Whether it was intentional or not, we'll never know, because in that moment in a bang play, you will never know. But I'm saying the optics of what we saw on TV, that's what they're going nuts about. It wasn't the Cleveland fans at the game. They didn't say that. It's all the ones that watched it at home on TV.
Right.
And, whether it was or not, it's an unfortunate injury to Nick Chubb.
It is.
And it's unfortunate that Minkah got hurt on the play too. It is what it is. There are injuries in football. I mean, what are we supposed to say? People get hurt. It's a high contact sport. It's right. The irresistible force versus the immovable object. When two objects hit at 20 to 25 miles an hour head on, it's no different than running into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour.
Great analogy. I like that. Okay, George.
Yeah, I thought it was a fairly clean hit. I have no objection to it, and it is very unfortunate We've seen these players go down with injuries now, and right at the beginning of the season, it's just never easy to see. Lions had their share of injuries last Sunday. All the teams are going through this right now, unfortunately, and in Dallas and Cleveland, and it's just a shame because these guys work out all year long, and they wait for this moment. They wait for the beginning of the long NFL season, and then
Right.
bam, it comes down to something like that, one play, and it's just unfortunate. But like Jeremy said, there's nothing you can do about it because injuries are a part of the NFL, and they always have been, unfortunately. But I thought it was a decent hit.
Yeah, and nowhere did I say that. I'm just saying what the Cleveland fans saw, and I understand what they saw. I am never going to take anything away from that because what it looks like and what it is two different things every time. Because unless you're on the field and in that situation, you really
Well, as
don't
long as
know
the
what it
officials
was.
didn't call a penalty, it's there,
Right,
and
right,
that's the
and then
way it
that's what
is.
I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Well, let's face the reality. Okay, when you have two guys leave the game because of a hit, you know how physical it is. But I have want to just say one or two more things about this subject before we move on to the next one. Number one, no matter how hard coaches try to police injuries during the preseason by leaving guys out, that's all well and good until you get to the game. But ultimately, you're going full speed, regular season game one, all the way until the final. So, I respect the coaches for trying to hold their players out. Minimize them in games, even though you still have two team workouts anyhow. But no matter how you try to think you're going to escape injuries by being conservative in the preseason, ultimately it could catch up with you. And indeed it has for a lot of players around the league. And I'm not going to get in it show full of injuries because every team is going to have their MASH list by the end of the year. I've always said it's not the best team that wins the Super Bowl, but the one, it's a survival of the fittest and the healthiest. That's what usually gets you to the end. And the NFL is certainly a sport that's worthy of it, knowing you have 17 games. And I think down the road, you're going to have 18 games and two preseason games eventually later. I see that coming down the road, but right now you're dealing with 17. With that said, let's look at the flip side of the coin. I want each of your observations on Deshaun Watson. He's taken pretty much 2 years off and is making the Texans, I think, look like geniuses because they ended up, the Browns traded a lot of draft capital to get him. And you also have CJ Stroud. So, all right, I'll lead off with you, Ralph. Okay. Deshaun Watson, some early thoughts.
Cleveland got egg on their face, Scott. It's a simple fact. Bottom line is, not only do they have egg on their face, they're stuck with this guy because they signed him to a big contract. They gave him $250 million. No matter what happens to this guy, other than an injury, they cannot get rid of him. I mean, it's the bottom line is they're stuck with him. So his performance, the way it is his own fault because he's been out of the game for almost 2 years. And then on top of all that, he had to get acclimated to a new system. And I mean, that right there is a shot in the foot. So the management of the Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski, made just a horrible move with this. I know they're trying to get a franchise quarterback to do something because they haven't had any luck with quarterbacks for at all, probably since Brian Sipe, I would think. You know what I mean? At least in my generation. So, I mean, they have not had luck at all with quarterbacks. So, and now here's another example of another one that they blew.
Well, Bernie Kosar is a name that a lot of people in.
Oh, I forgot about Bernie. I'm sorry, Scott.
That's okay. That's all right. I have to lift you up too, Ralph. It's no big deal. Bernie Kosar was really good. So
he was, yes.
And $230 million for a guy that hadn't played in a long time doesn't look very good either. $230 million. And the best part about a lot of the owners is they got smart because they were not going to cave into those demands of these high numbers. And that's why it took Lamar Jackson a little while, although he's worth every dime of what he's going to get. But in the end, Deshaun Watson, to me, you're right, Ralph. Egg in the face is a nicer version of it. All right, Jeremy.
Deshaun Watson, when you have 18 months off without having in-game situation, it doesn't matter how many ways you work out to keep yourself in shape, which he did do that well because he's not getting injuries when he's getting sacked. He actually still looks pretty muscular. He's still pretty mobile at that. But what he isn't is accurate because what lacks is the space between the ears not being worked out in game situations.
Right.
I have the feeling that he may even out and get better as the season progresses. He hasn't been god awful, but he hasn't been good.
Well, I'll say this too. Jimmy Haslam obviously realized he was desperate to try to make a move, and he did. And obviously now Kevin Stefanski's job is on the line, and he has to ride it out with
Yes.
Deshaun Watson. So you have a couple little dynamics there. With that said, I'm handing it over to George.
Well, he hasn't had a winning season in 4 years. When he was at Houston in 2019 was the last time he was above 500. He's 1-1 this year. I believe 2-2 last year. He's an average quarterback. That's all he is to me, is an average quarterback, but a highly paid average quarterback.
Yeah.
And you're right about Cleveland. Boy, I tell you, they're snake bit on their head coaching. They're snake bit on their quarterbacks. This is a franchise that just languishes year after year after year, and it's another situation that, I mean, I hope for the best. I don't wish the kid ill will or anything, but like Jeremy said, the stats aren't there, the completions aren't there. He's not throwing enough touchdown passes. I mean, you go down the list, all the vital statistics, his quarterback rating. He just cannot compare
Average.
to the guys that he's facing game in and game out. I mean, he just can't, statistics wise. So, and the thing about knowing the playbook and knowing what goes on is a valid argument, I believe, in his case. I really do, because you have to be smart as a quarterback. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to read those defenses at the split second. You have to be able to find the open receiver. I don't think he does all that very well at all. I'm sorry, Deshaun, but you need a little bit more.
No, you're right, George, because in the Steeler game, I saw opportunities for him to run, and he had open field to run, and he didn't. And that's, again, that's, like you said, bad decision making.
For
Well,
sure.
when you think about the Browns quarterback history, when they came back in the league, they drafted Tim Couch, and we certainly expected
Oh, yeah.
And we know that didn't work out well. So,
Oh,
all right,
God,
onwards
that
we
would be
go.
awful.
Yeah, that wasn't a good pick at all. Obviously, we know.
Right.
We could devote a show to the quarterbacks that they drafted, but I'm not going to pick on the Cleveland.
Hey,
fans
Scott,
like
he's
that.
one of our bums for Saturday.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. Well, I'm giving you some food for thought for our show. There you go.
That's it.
Well, that's okay. I don't know. Do I take him? You take him? I don't know. Watch the external bum contest. We'll see who has a tug of war over Tim Couch. With that said, so yeah. But the reality of the situation as far as Cleveland, I don't want to upset the Browns fans. We have a pretty good following out in the Cleveland area as well. They're trying hard. They really are. They're trying to make some moves. I like the move of Kareem Hunt that they brought him in to re-sign him for $4 million. May not take the place of Nick Chubb, but you know what? If you can do anything to bring this guy in with a $4 million contract, I'm sure there's some incentive-based clauses in it to bring it to that total to be able to pick him up. I hope for their sake, Kareem Hunt's able to go out there and do well. I think he also is a product, George, of the University of Toledo, right? The Toledo Rockets, if I remember right.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Toledo Rockets, there's your claim to fame here.
Mid-American
Fire
Conference.
Right, there you go. Mid-American Conference, they play some good football over there. Topic number 3, Warren Sapp, 50, Hall of Famer, joining Deion Sanders staff next season. Good fit, Ralph?
Yeah, absolutely. I like Warren Sapp. I always have, and if he's joining Deion Sanders, that's great. Deion Sanders managed to put together a good coaching staff there in Colorado. He has Pat Shurmur there. Pat Shurmur's a good offensive coach. Was bad as a head coach, but that's just a classic example of some of the good people that he's put on that staff. Colorado's going to be a force to reckon with this year and beyond.
Jeremy?
Great move. What a great defensive mind, and a guy that will help that defense, because God knows Colorado needs defense because they can't afford too many more shootouts.
That's true. They're going to have their hands full this weekend against the University of Oregon. I don't know how
that's
going to play out. Well, I don't know. We'll know when we go back on.
They cover the spread, but I don't think they win.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you what, they're 3-0, and Deion Sanders proven that he took.
I think they may win, Jeremy, but I think if they do, it's going to be a dogfight. It's not going to be a blowout or anything like that.
I don't think any game that Colorado's going to get into is going to be easy. But you know what? Remember, the team only won a game a year ago. Now they've won 3, and they're looking much better. On that, they have 86 new players on that roster. I like what they're doing in Boulder. I really, really, really do. I mean, that's unbelievable. They've attracted, and when you think about the Colorado State game, what did it bring? Was it around 11 million, if I remember right?
Yes.
For that was a lot for an in-state rivalry. And Jay Norvell, I thought that Colorado was going to blow them up, but Jay Norvell, the Colorado State State Rams coach, they came to play despite the 187 yards of penalties by the Rams.
Yeah, that's
George.
Mike Norvell's brother. Yeah, he's a good coach.
There was two of us when Prime was hired that said that Colorado would probably make a bowl game. That was me and Jacob.
Well,
We'll see.
That's a realistic goal. Go ahead, George.
Warren Sapp won a Super Bowl, 7-time Pro Bowl. I mean, come on. Yeah, that's a great move. It really is.
Yes, it is.
And Detroit has done something very similar. Dan Campbell surrounded himself with former NFL players. And I like that idea for Sapp to do the same, although it's a different level, of course. We're talking about college and not professional. But, yeah, I mean, he's got things going for him right now. But bringing on a talented person like Warren Sapp, that's really good. I think he's around 50 years old right now, but he's ready for the challenge. And I think he'll do good out there in that program, teaching those kids, Rocky Mountain High kids.
Well, you got to remember, Warren Sapp, to me, was one of the premier defensive players. And I think he dropped to the Buccaneers because there was some character issues at the time. And he had to fall into the Buccaneers. And, of course, when you fall into the Buccaneers, you have Tony Dungy. It's not that bad, okay? If anybody can fix you, it's Tony Dungy. Ralph ought to know that. And Tony Dungy made a living in Pittsburgh for a while, so I like him.
Yes, he did. Coached under Chuck Noll.
Right.
One of the best in the business.
Yeah. So, Tony Dungy, Chuck Noll. It's safe to say that coaching has always been pretty good in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, I think he'll end up eventually leaving. It's not a topic tonight, as one of the most underappreciated coaches in Pittsburgh history, is what I think. But that's just my opinion. So
yeah, you're right, Scott. You're probably right. Yes.
So I guess we all agree that Warren Sapp is a good hire.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
All right. Final thing we're going to talk about tonight before we turn over to Ralph's parting shots. Thought of 2 Monday night games next week. You got Philadelphia, Tampa Bay at 7:15. LA Rams at Cincinnati Bengals, 8:15. I don't know if you're going to see Joe Burrow in that game or not against Matt Stafford. And then, of course, you have Philadelphia, Tampa Bay. I'm not want to analyze the games. We're not even going to bother with that tonight. How's that, all right? Let's just go ahead and talk about the dynamics of not one, but 2 Monday night games so go ahead, Ralph.
Well, Tampa and Philly, I didn't expect Tampa to be 2-0 because I do know that, they have some issues down there. They have Baker Mayfield, who sort of succeeded in one place and didn't in another, and he was another Cleveland quarterback. And I didn't think it. Todd Bowles is another coach walking on eggshells down there. Talked to some of my Tampa friends, Peter Blake, Leo Haggerty, and a few other guys. They told me the same thing. So, we'll see where Tampa goes. They might be 3-0. You never know. But Philly's going to have to make some mistakes in this game for that to happen. I think Tampa might lose this game because, Philly is just they're on all cylinders right now except for their defense, as we talked about pre-show. So we'll see where it goes.
Jeremy?
Well, the only thing I got to say about Tampa being where it's at and Baker Mayfield doing as good as he is, isn't that kind of a testament to Byron Leftwich, who stayed behind instead of taking the head coaching gig? Because he's still the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator. And he did.
No, I believe he got released, if I remember.
He got released. There's a guy, he was the quarterback's coach at Seattle. He's their new offensive coordinator there.
Oh, that's okay. Continue on, Jeremy. That's all right.
Anyways,
sorry.
That's all right. Whoever's there doing that must have did something with Mayfield, because Mayfield's had the smarts, but he hasn't been able to put the smarts to his hands all the time. We saw it come to fruition in 2020, and lo and behold, they beat the Steelers in the playoffs in the first round. That being said, he hasn't had a good season since until this year. He's had good moments and good games, but he hasn't had a good start to a season, and it's looking good for him. It should be a good matchup. As far as Joe Burrow, he was out throwing at practice today, but he still wasn't taking actual practice. So it's still up in the air if that calf is good enough for him for his plant foot to be mechanically sound. I think they should start their backup anyways. They're in a bad place right now at 0-2, and Joe Burrow doesn't look right.
Okay, that's fair. George?
Yeah, both games will be very interesting for the reasons just mentioned, and Burrow is getting. Um, it's interesting because, ABC and ESPN, as we all know, are owned by the same company, Disney.
Right.
And yet they show these games, they stagger them by a whopping 45 minutes or 50 minutes. Come on. If you're going to do the doubleheader, guys, I want to talk more about that, Scott, not the game itself. I want to talk about the scheduling.
Right.
Also, I know for a fact that ABC is putting on Monday Night Football. I don't know if you guys heard, all year long because of the writer's strike. They don't have any fresh programming. What a brilliant move. Roone Arledge, if you were still there, I know you would make the same decision. So the ABC is going to show the ESPN game every Monday night, except, like Scott said, when we have these double headers planned. But why don't they stagger them a little bit more? Like they
they
did
used to.
years and years ago. They did one at 7 and one at 10:15 or something like
Right.
that. But they're not doing it that way, and I understand that. Um, people don't want to stay up really super late, okay? But the Colorado State, well, that was the weekend, but showed a lot of people want to stay up late for football. But I'm happy. I think it's good. When you got enough games available to do a doubleheader like that on Monday night, I'm all for it. And I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to both of those games. I'll go with Philly and what is it, the Rams, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The
So
Rams and Cincy. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go with Philly and Hurt and the Rams and Stafford to win those games. You guys
All
have
right.
talked about some of the reasons already.
All right, I'm going to pivot back, okay? And I want to make sure that everybody understands where I'm going with this. Jeremy, do you or do you not like the idea of 2 games on prime time on Monday night? Yes or no?
I do. I just like the idea of the staggered like they used to do. Like
Okay.
you said, they even did it last year Thursday. Remember the season opener with the Amazon was staggered. There was one at 7 and one at 10.
Okay.
That's a much better viewership, especially with West Coast and East Coast games.
Okay. Well, good. Thanks for answering my question. All right, Ralph, you heard the question. Give me an answer. Do you like double headers on Monday night football?
Yeah. Sure.
Yes or no?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, it takes away from Monday Night Raw, WWE. I mean, especially when, Monday nights in football season, they lose their ratings. So, I mean, because everybody, watches football. So, I mean, it's a staple, Monday Night Football. And I don't mind watching 2 games.
Well, I don't either, unless I'm competing with them, and I can't on
Yeah.
Monday nights. But it seems like nowadays I'm doing it anyway. So what's the difference? So, yeah, no. With all due respect, I like the idea of Monday Night Football. If you can add 2, and George, a lot of us are old enough to appreciate the fact I used to like ABC Monday Night Football.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, that was always a staple holiday. But the staggering way is to look now. As far as my analytics about the 2 games, I'll make it simple. I like Philadelphia, always have, despite losing 2 coordinators, they're still doing all right. But here's the thing about Tampa that I really like about them. Okay, everybody talks about Todd Bowles being on the hot seat, but you know what? I disagree with you. If you win with Baker Mayfield, you know what you're on? You're on house money. Remember that.
Yeah.
Because remember, Baker Mayfield is taking Tom Brady's place. And if he wins
Yes.
and he's mature and he does the right things and doesn't do as many endorsement deals and endorses a playbook and stays away from social media, you know what you might have? A number 1 bust that never became a bust. It just took a couple of changes of scenery to make it happen with a coaching staff that believed in him as well as an organization. This to me, Baker Mayfield, I'm pulling really hard for him. I really do. I hope that he finds a home once and for all. He's mature enough to take advantage of this opportunity because you don't want to be labeled bust. All right, so it took you 2, 3, 4 times to get it right. Hey, once upon a time, Jim Plunkett was the first overall pick in the draft, and he ended up winning with the 49ers, okay? Heisman Trophy. There are a lot of guys that could fall into that category. So, you know what, Baker? Make sure that if you can get a Baker's dozen wins, they're probably going to give you a statue in front of that. Just kidding with you. But Baker's dozen just happened to fall in the right place with the old.
Yeah. Plunkett won with the Raiders as well. I mean,
Well,
he
that's
did
what
it.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
ended up beating Philadelphia, I believe, in
Yeah.
the Super Bowl, if I remember. Was
Right. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Tom Flores was the coach. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So my point is this: I'm pulling
Yeah.
for Baker Mayfield. Hey, you know what? I'll always pull for Matt Stafford. I don't care if it's with the Rams or not. Me personally, I only think Stafford's got about another year or 2 left, anyhow, and that'll be the end of the line for him. I really don't. I think that Rams are going to ultimately move on. with that contract that he has, and he won't take less money. And we'll see where Matt goes. I think if he goes, though, it won't be because of the contract. It's because his body can only take so much, anyways, and injuries will ultimately be there. But as far as the original topic here, yes, I'm glad for 2 Monday night games. I wish they'd be spread out, but if they have the 7 to 8, 15, well, you know what? You'll be able to watch the back half of the other game if it's close and going to matter. It's still a pretty good idea to maximize all your teams on national television if you have the ability to do so. It's called promoting your product to the fullest.
I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Cincinnati in the Central Time Zone or Eastern?
Actually, I think they're in the Eastern Time Zone.
Yeah, they're
traveling.
They're playing the Rams at home.
East.
Steelers played the Rams out there.
Right.
LA.
There's a big difference in that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's coming east, and with Matt Stafford and his neck and back held together with Gorilla Glue and toothpicks. That defense is still nasty. They can get after the quarterback, and who knows what happens if he gets hit right.
That's true, but all the more reason why, like you guys alluded to, that wouldn't be the worst thing if Joe Burrow sat out a game either, knowing that I believe Aaron Donald is still.
Oh yeah.
So,
if he's smart, Scott, I think he will. If he's smart, if Zach Taylor's smart.
We keep talking about all these injuries, right? Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't see any more major ones this weekend.
Yes.
Now, was Kelsey back for the Chiefs last Sunday, Jeremy?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
What did he do? What were what's his final line? Do you know?
Let me look. I'll tell you right now. No, it'll only take me a second.
The reason I brought that up, Scott, is because, these guys early in the year, I agree. Rest them. Don't overdo it. Don't overextend. If somebody's hurt, like Burrow, and you're rushing them in there, and look what now you're 0-2. I mean, I'm not saying it's all his fault, but I'm just saying.
He had Noah Gray's numbers. 4 catches.
Hey, look at Arthur Smith in Atlanta, guys. He rested all his starters for the preseason. He's 2-0. So there you go.
Well, again, you know what? I don't want to get premature with those numbers yet early.
Right.
I know where you're going with this, Ralph. We'll save it for another time. I need to really find out what teams are where they are after week 4 or 5 before.
Right. After their bye weeks.
Well, but the reason my logic, Ralph, behind what I just said between 4 and 5 is by then you're going to know whether injuries are taking an early toll out of you, and then and then you're going back and forth to the practice squad, so a little bit more movement. After weeks 4 and 5, then I could gauge where they're at. Right now, after 2 weeks, you got to remember, who knows if some teams have even played a home game yet or not. But by week 3 or 4 or 5, they will have played at least on the road and at home. Jeremy, was there anything else you want to add before you take it over the Ralph's shot?
I was asked about Kelsey's numbers last week, and if you actually look, it's very similar to what Noah Gray had in the first half versus the Lions. 4 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown.
Okay.
So
he got a touchdown.
And Noah Gray got the touchdown for Kansas City. What I'm saying is in that first half, Noah Gray was doing exactly what Kelsey does for Pat Mahomes, and they shut that down in the second half.
Yeah.
I got to give it to Dan Campbell. He had guys suspended for gambling and injuries, and Detroit's where they are.
Well, again, let's see over the weekend. All right. At this point, at this time of the show, it's time for Ralph's parting shot. Go ahead, Ralph.
I want to give my parting shot out to offensive coordinator Matt Canada for the Steelers. He's the cheapest paid offensive coordinator in the league. He only makes $500,000 a year. He's friends with Mike Tomlin. He recruited Mike Tomlin's son at Maryland when he was interim head coach, because he was the interim head coach there because Randy Edsel got fired. Okay. He's done average in college. He got fired at LSU because him and Ogron couldn't get along. All right. But this guy is a complete bum. I mean, he's not a good coordinator. He, at one time when he was at Pitt, for the 1 or 2 seasons he was at Pitt, he asked for $1 million. They wouldn't give it to him. So he went to LSU. All right. This guy is a horrible NFL coach. He never was an NFL coach, and I don't think he should ever be another NFL coach. If he gets fired or his contract's up at the end of the year, we'll see where the Steelers go with this. I think he's a bum, and we'll see what happens after that.
All right, fair enough. Okay, with that said, as we approach the end of the broadcast, Ralph, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Ralph Williams 737 at gmail.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter X. I also have my own YouTube channel. And also you can catch my radio show Tuesday afternoons, 5 to 6 p.m. on Beaver County Radio, FM 99.3, AM 1230 in Western Pennsylvania. I'm also, the radio show is also live on Beaver County Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel.
And of course, let's not forget External Bum
Oh.
Podcast as well.
Oh,
Saturday,
I have my, on Monday,
I'll be joined by Ralph, Mark Mancini.
On Saturday mornings. Yes, Saturday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Block Talk Radio, myself, Scott Morganroth, Mark Mancini, and Joe Kuglis. We have a show called the External Bum Podcast, 347-205-9631. Call that number, and you'll be able to listen to the show. It's a very fun show for 30 minutes. We talk about bums in sports, and we talk about sports in general.
Yeah, and if you see me on Facebook or Ralph, you'll be able to find it on our timelines. All right, Jeremy, go ahead.
Well, you can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading, where you can see my articles, like my latest one that I labeled, Aaron Glenn, is he related to Matt Patricia? Read it. You'll understand why when you get to the end. It sounds like a joke, but the numbers don't lie. Then you got this channel right here, the South Florida Tribune channel, where I am on a plethora of shows whenever Scott needs me, whether it's Fire Up Wisconsin, Fire Up Michigan, Professor and Pupil, and wherever else he may put me on, I'm there. Then you can find me on my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Detroit Lions, where I talk the NFL on Wednesday and Lions football on Fridays, occasional pre and post game shows, and guests everywhere where I'm invited.
Oh, don't worry. There's no shortage of invites for you anyways, but that's beside the point. All right, George, wrap it up. And
all right. Sports broadcasters on the air featuring Detroit and Michigan sports broadcasters, including Ernie Harwell and Frank Beckman and Ray Lane and, oh my God, Ty Tyson, Bud Lynch. The list goes on and on. We've had some great sportscasters here. And Scott is in the book as well. He's interviewing Muhammad Ali in one picture and Jimmy Connors in another picture. You can find a link to purchase the book at the end of my column. I'm right there along with Jeremy, as he just mentioned, in the Motor City Tribune. And also you can read me on the pages of the Detroit Monitor, a local newspaper in town. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or George Icorn on LinkedIn or on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SanGSports99, and find me on a numerous amount of these shows on this wonderful network, the South Florida Tribune.
Very good, George. Nice job. All right. Anyways, one last time, in case you just joining us, just so you know, Fire Up is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Fire Up can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We're over the 900 mark, so we're not that far away. Please also comment, like, share the broadcast. I want to be a guest. Chat room, one way to do it. Send topic ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find us on X or Twitter at Tribune South. Candy Adling is behind the scenes this week. She's been doing a lot on the website because she's going to be taking the majority of the broadcast next week, as I have to go in for a back procedure. So she'll take my place. But I'm not available, although I will be here Monday night, so nothing to worry about there. Any programming notes that we have to let you know, we'll do it through social media as well as the shows that we are broadcasting. We should, for the most part, have a full slate, but we'll keep you posted as to the times and the shows that are available on that particular point. But meanwhile, really great show tonight. Really enjoyed the dialogue between us. Ralph Williams, as always, you're steady. You do a really fine job. Jeremy Bulrick, I know what your expectations are. You never fall short of those anyway, so there you go. No, I'm not. I know you're turning your neck, so I don't think you have a neck issue. So at least
I have a bad nerve in mine. So
yeah, but
the
only nerve that he has is a knee-jerk nerve reaction that he has to try to become a comic, is what it is with him. And George Icorn, what else can I say about you? So
thank you.
So on behalf of Ralph Williams, Jeremy Bulrick, George Icorn, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up. We will see you on the next episode. Have a great weekend, everybody.